The city stretched endlessly beneath a sky bruised with the weight of dusk, its towers of glass and steel glowing like a constellation that had fallen to earth. Somewhere within that sprawl of ambition and indifference, Park Jin-woo moved through his life with the practiced ease of someone who had never known the sting of refusal. He was 28 years old, heir to a conglomerate that bore his family name across half the country, and he wore his privilege like a second skin, invisible to him, glaringly obvious to everyone else. His penthouse overlooked the Han River, a view that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime. The furniture was Italian, the art was abstract and expensive, and the silence that filled the space between his phone calls and business meetings was the kind of silence that only money could buy. Jin-woo had everything a man could want, and because of that, he wanted for nothing. Or perhaps more accurately, he had forgotten how to want anything real. On this particular evening, he stood at his floor-to-ceiling window with a glass of whiskey in hand, watching the city lights flicker on one by one like a performance staged just for him. His reflection stared back from the glass, sharp-featured, well-groomed, handsome in the way that came from good genes and better tailoring. His dark hair was swept back, his suit perfectly tailored, his expression one of perpetual, mild amusement at a world that existed primarily for his entertainment. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, saw his friend Kang Min-ho's name, and answered without much interest. "Jin-woo, are you coming tonight or are you going to make us wait like always?" Min-ho's voice was teasing, familiar. "I'll be there," Jin-woo said, taking a slow sip of his drink. "When have I ever missed one of your parties?" "Never, because you know we're the only people in this city worth spending time with." Min-ho laughed, that easy laugh of someone who had never questioned his place in the world. "We've got something special planned tonight, by the way. A little entertainment." "Oh?" Jin-woo's tone was polite but detached. Entertainment at Min-ho's parties usually meant the same rotation of people saying the same things, wearing different clothes. "You'll see. Just be ready to laugh. I guarantee you've never seen anything like this before." Jin-woo hung up without ceremony and finished his drink. He didn't particularly care what Min-ho had planned. He would go because that was what he did. He moved through the motions of his social obligations with the same detached competence he brought to board meetings and charity galas. It was all performance, and he had learned his lines long ago. An hour later, he arrived at the venue, a private estate on the outskirts of the city that belonged to Min-ho's family. The driveway was lined with luxury cars, their polished bodies gleaming under tasteful lighting. Inside, the usual crowd had gathered. Men in designer suits, women draped in silk and diamonds, everyone holding champagne flutes like scepters of their superiority. The air smelled of expensive perfume and self-satisfaction. Jin-woo moved through the crowd with practiced charm, exchanging pleasantries that meant nothing, shaking hands that conveyed wealth and connection but little warmth. He had just accepted another glass of champagne when Min-ho appeared at his side, grinning like a child with a secret. "There you are," Min-ho said, clapping him on the shoulder. "Come on, I want you to see this." He led Jin-woo through the crowd to a quieter corner of the room where several of their friends had gathered, all wearing expressions of barely concealed amusement. In the center of their circle stood a young woman who looked so out of place she might as well have been standing on a different planet. She was small, perhaps 23 or 24, with a round face that still carried the softness of youth. Her skin was sun-touched, not the porcelain paleness that was prized in their circles, and her hair was pulled back in a simple braid rather than styled into the elaborate arrangements favored by the women around her. She wore a dress, a modest pale blue thing that might have been pretty in a country church, but looked painfully plain against the backdrop of haute couture. Her hands were folded in front of her, and she stood very still, her dark eyes watching the people around her with an expression that was difficult to read. "Jin-woo, meet Lee Hana," Min-ho said with exaggerated formality. "Hana is visiting us from... where was it again?" "Yangpyeong," the girl said quietly. Her voice was soft, with the rounded vowels of rural Gyeonggi province. "A village outside Yangpyeong." Right, Min-ho said, waving his hand as if the specifics didn't matter. "Hana is the daughter of one of my father's factory workers. Isn't that right, Hana?" "My father manages equipment maintenance," she said, and though her voice remained quiet, there was something steady in it. "Exactly," Min-ho said, turning to Jin-woo with a grin. I thought it would be fun to give her a taste of high society. You know, show her how the other half lives. Isn't that generous of me? Jinwoo looked at the girl, at Hana, and understood immediately what was happening. This wasn't generosity. This was sport. Minho had brought her here to be stared at, to be the subject of whispered commentary and condescending questions. She was the evening's entertainment, the living embodiment of everything these people believed themselves superior to. And yet, as Jinwoo studied her face, he saw something that surprised him. She wasn't crying. She wasn't shrinking away or stammering with embarrassment. She simply stood there, her hands folded, her expression calm, as if she had decided to weather whatever came with quiet dignity. For some reason, that calmness irritated him. "How do you like the party, Hana?" one of the women asked, her tone dripping with false sweetness. "It's very grand," Hana said simply. "Have you ever been to anything like this before?" "No, ma'am." "Ma'am!" The woman laughed, delighted. "Did you hear that? She called me ma'am. How adorable." Jinwoo watched as the questions continued, each one designed to highlight the distance between Hana's world and theirs. They asked about her home, her family, her education. They asked if she knew how to use the various forks laid out at dinner, if she had ever tasted caviar, if she owned any real jewelry. With each question, the circle around her seemed to draw tighter, their smiles sharper. And through it all, Hana answered quietly, honestly, without shame or pretense. When she didn't know something, she said so. When they laughed, she didn't flinch. She simply stood there, absorbing their mockery with a kind of grace that Jinwoo found himself unable to look away from. "Jinwoo, you're awfully quiet," Minho said, nudging him. "What do you think? Isn't she something?" Jinwoo looked at his friend, then back at Hana. He should have walked away. He should have found this entire spectacle as boring as he found most things. But there was something about the way she stood there, unflinching, that sparked something in him. Not quite anger, not quite shame, but something uncomfortable that he couldn't name. "I think," Jinwoo said slowly, "that this is exactly the kind of thing that makes these parties unbearable." Minho blinked, surprised. "What do you mean?" "I mean, it's boring," Jinwoo said, his tone light but cutting. "You bring someone here like a circus act and expect the rest of us to be entertained by pointing out how different she is. It's predictable. It's lazy." Minho's smile faltered. "I thought you'd find it funny." "You thought wrong." Jinwoo drained his champagne and set the glass down on a nearby table. He glanced once more at Hana, who was watching him now with those dark, steady eyes. For a moment, their gazes met, and he saw something in her expression. Not gratitude exactly, but recognition. She had heard what he said. She understood. And then he turned and walked away, leaving Minho sputtering behind him. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of familiar faces and forgettable conversations. Jinwoo moved through the party with his usual detachment, but he found his thoughts returning again and again to that quiet girl standing in a circle of jackals. He told himself it didn't matter. She wasn't his concern. By tomorrow, he would have forgotten her entirely. Except he didn't forget. 3 days later, he was sitting in his office reviewing quarterly reports when his assistant knocked and entered with an apologetic expression. "Mr. Park, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she insisted it was important." Jinwoo didn't look up from his papers. "Tell her to make an appointment like everyone else." "I did, sir, but she said you would remember her from Mr. Kang's party." That made him pause. He set down his pen and looked up. "Who is it?" "A Miss Lee Hana." For a long moment, Jinwoo said nothing. Then, more out of curiosity than anything else, he nodded. "Send her in." Hana entered his office with the same quiet composure she had shown at the party. She wore simple clothes, a modest blouse and skirt that were clean but clearly inexpensive. Her braid was neat, her hands folded in front of her in that same careful way. She looked around the office, taking in the leather furniture, the original artwork, the view of the city through the wide windows, and then her eyes settled on him. "Mr. Park," she said, bowing slightly, "thank you for seeing me." Jinwoo leaned back in his chair, studying her. "I'll admit, I'm surprised. What brings you here, Miss Lee?" "I came to thank you," she said simply. For what you said at the party. He raised an eyebrow. I didn't say it for your benefit. I know, she said. But it helped me anyway. So I wanted to thank you. There was a silence. Jinwoo found himself at a loss for words, which was unusual. He had expected her to ask for something. Money, a job, a favor. That was how these things usually went. But she wasn't asking for anything. She had come all this way just to say thank you. How did you even find me? He asked. I asked Mr. Kang's staff for your office address. They were very helpful. Of course they were. Jinwoo almost smiled. Well, you've said your thanks. Is there anything else? Hana hesitated, and for the first time he saw uncertainty in her expression. Actually, there is one thing. Mr. Kang invited me to another event this weekend, a gala of some kind. He said I should come, that it would be good for me. Jinwoo's expression darkened. And you believe him? No, she said quietly. I think he wants to humiliate me again. But I also think, if I refuse, I'll be proving him right, that I don't belong, that I should stay in my place. So you're going? Yes. Jinwoo studied her for a long moment. There was something in her eyes, a kind of stubborn pride that he recognized, even if he didn't fully understand it. She knew what she was walking into, and she was choosing to walk into it anyway. Against his better judgment, he heard himself say, "Then let me come with you." She blinked. What? If you're going to walk into a den of wolves, you might as well have someone watching your back. He stood, straightening his tie. Besides, Minho's galas are always insufferably dull. At least this way, I'll have something to do. Hana looked at him, and for the first time, he saw something like hope in her expression. You would do that? I just said I would, didn't I? She bowed again, deeper this time. Thank you, Mr. Park. Call me Jinwoo, he said, though he wasn't sure why. When she left his office, Jinwoo stood at his window for a long time, staring out at the city and wondering what he had just agreed to. The gala was held at one of Seoul's most exclusive hotels, a glittering palace of marble and crystal where the country's wealthiest gathered to see and be seen. Jinwoo arrived in his usual style, chauffeur-driven car, tailored tuxedo, the kind of effortless elegance that came from a lifetime of privilege. He had arranged to meet Hana at the entrance, and when he saw her waiting there, he was struck once again by how out of place she looked. She wore the same pale blue dress from the last party, clearly the only formal dress she owned. Her hair was still in that simple braid, her face free of the heavy makeup that adorned the other women streaming past her. She stood off to the side, away from the main entrance, as if trying to make herself invisible. When she saw him approaching, her face brightened with relief. Jinwoo, she said, and he noticed she had taken his invitation to use his first name. I was afraid you wouldn't come. I said I would, he replied, offering her his arm. Shall we? She looked at his arm, hesitated, then gently placed her hand in the crook of his elbow. Her touch was light, uncertain, and he could feel her trembling slightly. They entered the ballroom together, and immediately Jinwoo felt the weight of 100 stares. People turned to look, their conversations faltering as they took in the sight of Park Jinwoo, one of the city's most eligible bachelors, a man who dated actresses and heiresses, escorting a girl who looked like she had just stepped off a farm. The whispers started almost immediately. Jinwoo ignored them, guiding Hana through the crowd with calm authority. He could feel her tension in the way her hand tightened on his arm, but she kept her head up, her expression composed. Minho appeared within minutes, his eyes widening when he saw them together. Jinwoo, he said, his tone caught between surprise and amusement. I didn't expect to see you here. And with Miss Lee, no less. What a surprising pairing. Is it? Jinwoo said coolly. I thought she deserved to see what a real gala looks like, not just be paraded around like a curiosity. Minho's smile tightened. Of course. How noble of you. The evening progressed with excruciating slowness. Jinwoo stayed close to Hana, deflecting the worst of the comments with sharp retorts and icy stares. But he couldn't protect her from everything. The The women's eyes traveled over her simple dress with barely concealed disdain. The men smirked and whispered. Someone asked if she knew how to dance, and when she admitted she didn't, the laughter was polite but cutting. Through it all, Hana remained calm. She answered questions when asked, smiled when appropriate, and never once complained or showed distress. Jinwoo found himself watching her more than he watched anyone else, trying to understand what gave her that strength. Dinner was served in a grand hall, with assigned seating that placed Jinwoo and Hana at a table with several of Minho's closest friends. The conversation was deliberately cruel, full of questions designed to embarrass her. They asked about her family's income, her education, her future prospects. They asked if she had ever left Korea, if she had ever eaten at a Michelin-starred restaurant, if she knew the difference between champagne and Prosecco. Hana answered each question with the same quiet honesty, never trying to pretend to be something she wasn't. "I've never traveled outside of Korea," she said when asked. "My family can't afford it." "Have you been to university?" someone else asked. "No. I finished high school and then helped my mother with our farm." "A farm?" The woman who asked looked delighted. "What do you grow?" "Rice, mostly, and some vegetables." "How quaint," the woman said, and the word hung in the air like an insult. Jinwoo set down his fork, his jaw tight. "There's nothing quaint about it. Agriculture is one of the most important industries in this country. Without people like Hana's family, half the people in this room would starve." The table fell silent. The woman who had spoken looked taken aback, as if she couldn't quite believe he had contradicted her. "I didn't mean anything by it," she said defensively. "I'm sure you didn't," Jinwoo said, his tone making it clear he thought exactly the opposite. After dinner, the guests moved to a larger ballroom for dancing and socializing. Jinwoo was about to suggest they leave when Minho appeared again, this time with several other men in tow. "Jinwoo, we're going out to the terrace for cigars and brandy," Minho said. "You should join us, unless you're too busy babysitting." The insult was thinly veiled, and Jinwoo felt his temper flare. But before he could respond, Hana touched his arm gently. "It's all right," she said quietly. "You should go. I'll be fine." He looked at her, searching her face. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." Reluctantly, Jinwoo followed Minho and the others out to the terrace. It was a mistake, and he knew it the moment he stepped outside. But pride, and perhaps a desire to prove that he wasn't as invested in Hana's well-being as he suddenly seemed, kept him from turning back. The men stood around smoking and drinking, their conversation turning inevitably to business and women. Jinwoo barely listened, his mind still on Hana alone in that ballroom full of people who saw her as nothing more than entertainment. Inside, Hana stood near a wall, watching the dancers move across the floor in elegant patterns. She had known this would be difficult, but the reality was worse than she had imagined. Every glance felt like a judgment, every whispered word like a blade. But she had made it this far, and she would see it through. A man approached her, someone she didn't recognize, middle-aged and expensively dressed. He looked her up and down with an expression that made her skin crawl. "You're the country girl everyone's been talking about," he said. "Yes, sir," Hana replied, keeping her voice neutral. "Quite the novelty, aren't you? Tell me, what's it like being Park Jinwoo's pet project?" Hana felt heat rise to her cheeks, but she kept her composure. "Mr. Park has been very kind to me." "I'm sure he has," the man said, his tone suggesting something ugly. "Men like him always have a soft spot for charitable causes." Hana didn't respond. She had learned that silence was often the best defense. The man leaned closer, and she could smell the alcohol on his breath. "You know, you're actually quite pretty, in a rustic sort of way. If you ever get tired of being Jinwoo's little project, I'd be happy to— Excuse me." Hana turned to see a woman standing nearby, elegant and poised, her expression cold as she looked at the man. "Mr. Choi, I believe your wife is looking for you," the woman said. The man straightened, his expression souring. "I was just having a conversation." "I'm sure you were. Now go find your wife." The man muttered something under his breath and walked away. The woman turned to Hana, her expression softening slightly. "Are you all right?" "Yes." Hana said, though her hands were shaking. Thank you. The woman studied her for a moment. You don't belong here, do you? It wasn't said cruelly, just as a statement of fact. Hana shook her head. No, I don't. Then why did you come? Hana thought about that question. Why had she come? To prove something, to herself or to them? She wasn't sure anymore. Because I was invited, she said finally. And I thought if I refused, it would mean they were right, that I don't deserve to be here. The woman's expression was unreadable. And do you deserve to be here? I don't know, Hana admitted. But I don't think they deserve to decide that for me. Something flickered in the woman's eyes. Respect, perhaps, or recognition. She nodded slowly. Well said. Before Hana could respond, there was a commotion near the entrance to the ballroom. People began moving quickly, their voices rising in alarm. Hana heard someone shout about the terrace, and her heart seized with sudden fear. She pushed through the crowd, following the surge of people toward the terrace doors. When she emerged onto the wide stone balcony, she saw a crowd gathered near the railing, their faces pale with shock. And there, hanging from the railing by one hand, his feet dangling over a 3-story drop to the stone courtyard below, was Jinwoo. Hana's mind went blank with terror. She didn't think. She didn't hesitate. She ran forward, pushing past the frozen onlookers, and threw herself down at the railing. Jinwoo's hand was slipping, his face tight with strain and fear. Jinwoo! She cried out, reaching for him. Hana, don't, he gasped. But she was already grabbing his wrist with both hands. She wasn't strong enough to pull him up. She knew that immediately. But she could hold him, could give him time. Her shoulders screamed with the effort, her hands burning where she gripped his wrist. But she held on with everything she had. Someone help, she shouted, her voice raw. Please. Finally, others moved. Men rushed forward, grabbing Jinwoo's other arm, hauling him back over the railing to safety. He collapsed on the stone floor of the terrace, breathing hard, his face ashen. Hana fell back as well, her whole body shaking. Her hands were scraped and bleeding from where she had gripped the stone railing, but she barely noticed. All she could see was Jinwoo, alive, safe. He looked up at her, his eyes wide with something that might have been shock or disbelief or gratitude. You, he started, his voice hoarse. You could have fallen. You were falling, Hana said simply, as if that explained everything. The crowd around them was silent, staring at the country girl who had just saved one of the wealthiest men in Seoul without a moment's hesitation. The woman who had spoken to Hana earlier helped her to her feet, her expression gentle. Let's get you cleaned up, she said quietly. Hana let herself be led away, but she glanced back once at Jinwoo. He was still staring at her, his expression unreadable. In that moment, something shifted between them, though neither could have named it yet. The aftermath of that night unfolded in slow motion, each day bleeding into the next with the heavy weight of unspoken things. Jinwoo returned to his penthouse, to his routine, to the life that had always felt so certain. But certainty had cracked, and through that crack, something uncomfortable seeped in. He couldn't stop thinking about her hands, rough and small, gripping his wrist with a strength that should have been impossible. He couldn't stop thinking about her face, pale with fear but resolute, as she held on when everyone else had frozen. She had risked herself without hesitation, without calculation, without any thought for what she might gain or lose. It disturbed him how much that mattered. His assistant brought him coffee in the morning, reviewed his schedule, mentioned that the press had picked up the story of his near fall at the Gala. The official explanation was that he had leaned too far over the railing while admiring the view, that the stone had been wet from rain. No one mentioned that he had been pushed, accidentally perhaps in the chaos of too many men crowding the terrace with cigars and brandy, but pushed nonetheless. And no one mentioned in the official accounts the name of the girl who had saved him. Jinwoo thought about that as he sat in his office, staring at reports he couldn't focus on. The way the media had erased her so completely, as if her contribution was too insignificant to note or perhaps too inconvenient. After all, What did it say about their world if the person with the most courage was the one they had all been mocking just hours before? He picked up his phone, hesitated, then called his assistant. Find Lee Hana's contact information. I need her address. There was a pause. The young woman from the Gala, sir? Yes. Right away. The address, when it came, was for a small village outside Yangpyeong, just as she had said. Jinwoo stared at it for a long time, then made a decision that surprised even himself. He drove out the next day, alone, without his driver or his usual entourage. The drive took him out of the city and into the countryside, where the glass towers gave way to rice fields and low hills covered in pine trees. The air smelled different here, cleaner, simpler, touched with the scent of earth and growing things. Hana's home was a small traditional house with a tiled roof, surrounded by vegetable gardens and a modest rice paddy. An older woman was working in the garden when Jinwoo pulled up in his luxury car, and she straightened slowly, shading her eyes against the sun. Jinwoo stepped out, suddenly acutely aware of how out of place he looked in his designer clothes and expensive car. The woman watched him approach with the cautious expression of someone who had learned not to trust unexpected visitors. Good afternoon, Jinwoo said, bowing politely. I'm looking for Lee Hana. Is she here? The woman's eyes narrowed. Who's asking? My name is Park Jinwoo. I'm a friend of your daughter's. A friend? The woman repeated, her tone skeptical. She studied him for a long moment, and Jinwoo had the distinct impression he was being weighed and found wanting. Hana's inside. I'll get her. She disappeared into the house, and Jinwoo stood in the small courtyard, feeling more uncertain than he had in years. A few chickens pecked at the ground near his feet. A dog lay in the shade of the porch, watching him with lazy interest. When Hana emerged, she stopped short at the sight of him. She was wearing simple work clothes, loose pants and a faded shirt, and her hands were dirty from whatever task she had been doing inside. Her hair was in that same braid, a few strands escaping around her face. Jinwoo, she said, and there was surprise in her voice, but also something else. Wariness, perhaps. I wanted to see you, he said, then realized how that sounded. To thank you. Properly. She came down the porch steps, wiping her hands on a cloth. You didn't have to come all this way. I wanted to, he said again, and found that it was true. They stood in awkward silence for a moment. Hana's mother watched from the doorway, her expression unreadable. Would you like some tea? Hana asked finally. Yes, thank you. She led him inside, into a small main room that was clean but spare. The furniture was old but well-maintained, the floor swept and polished. Hana gestured for him to sit at a low table while she disappeared into what he assumed was the kitchen. Her mother followed her, and though they spoke in low voices, Jinwoo could hear the conversation. What is that man doing here? He wanted to thank me, mother. For what? A pause. For something that happened at the gala. Hana, I don't like this. Men like that don't come to places like this unless they want something. He's not like that. How do you know? Another pause. I don't, but I want to believe he isn't. The mother made a disapproving sound, but said nothing more. Hana returned with tea, setting it down in front of Jinwoo with careful precision. Thank you, he said, accepting the cup. They drank in silence. The tea was simple, green and slightly bitter, nothing like the expensive varieties Jinwoo usually consumed. But it was warm and honest, and somehow that made it better. Your home is peaceful, Jinwoo said finally. It's quiet, Hana agreed. Too quiet sometimes. Is it lonely? She looked at him, surprised by the question. Sometimes, but there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. Jinwoo thought about his penthouse, filled with expensive things and empty silence. Yes, he said quietly. I suppose there is. Hana set down her cup. Why did you really come here, Jinwoo? He met her eyes, those dark, steady eyes that seemed to see through all his careful defenses. Because I needed to see you, to understand. Understand what? Why you did it. Why you risked yourself for me. Hana was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft but certain. Because it was the right thing to do. Because you were in danger and I could help. It wasn't complicated. It is to me, Jinwoo said. In my world, everything comes with a price. Every action has a motive. But you didn't want anything from me. Should I have? Most people would. I'm not most people. No, Jinwoo thought, looking at her. You're not. He stayed longer than he had planned, talking with Hana about things that surprised him. She told him about growing up in the village, about helping her parents with the farm, about the small joys and frustrations of rural life. She spoke without bitterness or self-pity, accepting her circumstances with a grace that he found both admirable and slightly incomprehensible. In turn, he found himself telling her things he rarely shared with anyone, about the pressure of his family's expectations, the loneliness of privilege, the way his life sometimes felt like a performance he had forgotten how to stop. That sounds exhausting, Hana said when he finished. It is, Jinwoo admitted, but it's all I know. You could change it. Could I? People can always change, if they want to badly enough. He looked at her, at this girl who had saved his life and asked for nothing in return, and felt something shift inside him. It was uncomfortable and unfamiliar, this feeling, like waking up from a long sleep and discovering the world had changed while he wasn't paying attention. When he finally left, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Hana walked him to his car, her arms wrapped around herself against the evening chill. Will I see you again? She asked, and there was a vulnerability in the question that made his chest tighten. Yes, Jinwoo said, and meant it. If you want to. I do. He drove back to the city with her image burned into his mind, standing in the fading light, small and brave, and somehow more real than anything else in his life. The weeks that followed were strange and disorienting. Jinwoo found himself making excuses to return to Yangpyeong, to that small house with its vegetable gardens and quiet rhythms. He told himself he was just being polite, repaying a debt. But the truth was more complicated and more terrifying. He was falling in love with her. It happened slowly, in moments he couldn't quite categorize or control. The way she laughed at something simple, like the antics of the chickens in the yard. The way she listened when he talked, really listened, as if his words mattered. The way she moved through her days with purpose and grace, never complaining about work that would have seemed unbearable to him. Hana's mother remained suspicious, watching their growing friendship with narrowed eyes and tight lips. But Hana herself seemed to open like a flower in spring, her smiles coming easier, her laughter more frequent. They took walks through the rice paddies, talking about everything and nothing. Jinwoo learned about the cycles of planting and harvest, about the way water needed to be carefully managed, about the backbreaking labor that went into every bowl of rice he had ever eaten without thinking. Hana learned about his world too, though he found himself describing it with less certainty than before. The parties that had once seemed glamorous now felt hollow. The business dealings that had once excited him now seemed petty. His friends, with their endless games of status and one-upmanship, suddenly looked like children playing dress-up. Do you ever feel like you're living the wrong life? He asked her one afternoon, as they sat by a small stream that ran through her family's property. Hana considered the question. I used to, she said. When I was younger, I would see girls from the city and think their lives must be so much better than mine, so much more exciting. And now? Now I think every life has its own challenges, its own joys. The trick is figuring out what matters to you and holding on to it. What matters to you? She was quiet for a long time, her eyes on the water. Kindness, she said finally. Honesty. Being able to look at myself in the mirror and know I tried to do the right thing. Family. Home. She paused, then added so softly he almost missed it. Love. Jinwoo's heart clenched. He wanted to tell her that she mattered to him, that somewhere in the past few weeks she had become essential to his understanding of the world. But the words stuck in his throat, tangled up with fear and uncertainty. Instead, he reached out and took her hand. It was rough from work, strong and capable, and it fit perfectly in his. Hana looked down at their joined hands, then up at his face. Something passed between them, a recognition that went deeper than words. "Jin-woo," she said, and his name and her voice sounded like a question and an answer all at once. But before either of them could say more, her mother's voice called from the house, sharp and urgent. They broke apart guiltily, and Jin-woo stood brushing off his pants. "I should go," he said. "Yes," Hana agreed, but she looked disappointed. As Jin-woo drove back to Seoul that evening, his phone began buzzing insistently. He ignored it for as long as he could, but eventually pulled over to check the messages. They were all from Minho. "Where are you? You've been disappearing for weeks. What's going on? We need to talk. Tonight. It's important. Jin-woo, answer your damn phone." With a sigh, Jin-woo called him back. Minho answered on the first ring. "Finally," Minho said, his voice tight. "Where have you been?" "I've been busy." "Too busy for your friends? Jin-woo, people are starting to talk." "Let them talk." "It's that girl, isn't it? The farm girl, Hana." Jin-woo's grip tightened on the phone. "What about her?" "You've been seeing her, going to her village." "Jin-woo, what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that's none of your business." "It is my business when it affects your reputation. Our reputation. You're Park Jin-woo. You can't just..." "Can't what, Minho? Can't befriend someone outside our precious circle? Can't spend time with someone who actually has substance?" There was a shocked silence. Then Minho's voice came back, cold and hard. "You're making a mistake. This girl, she's using you. She's done nothing of the sort." "Then what does she want? Why else would she attach herself to you?" "Because I asked her to. Because we enjoy each other's company. Because for the first time in years, I feel like I'm having actual conversations with a real person instead of performing for an audience." "You're going to regret this," Minho said. "Mark my words. She'll hurt you, or she'll embarrass you, or she'll turn out to be just like everyone else, looking for a handout." "She's nothing like everyone else," Jin-woo said quietly. "That's the point." He hung up before Minho could respond. But the conversation haunted him as he drove the rest of the way home. Minho's words echoed in his mind, not because he believed them, but because they represented everything his world would think. Every objection that would be raised, every judgment that would be passed. Could he really do this? Could he pursue something real with Hana, knowing what it would cost? He didn't have an answer. The next time he visited Yangpyeong, there was a tension in the air that hadn't been there before. Hana seemed quieter, more withdrawn. Her mother barely acknowledged him, her disapproval radiating like heat. "Is something wrong?" Jin-woo asked when they were alone. Hana didn't answer immediately. She was mending a shirt, her needle moving with practiced precision. Finally, she set it aside and looked at him. "My mother thinks you're going to break my heart," she said simply. The words hit him like a physical blow. "What do you think?" "I think..." Hana paused, choosing her words carefully. "I think you're standing between two worlds, and you haven't decided which one you want to live in. And if I chose this world? Your world?" "Could you really?" Hana asked, and there was sadness in her eyes. "Could you give up everything you know? Your friends, your status, your comfortable life?" "I don't know," Jin-woo admitted. "But I know I don't want to lose you." Hana smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Sometimes wanting isn't enough. They sat in uncomfortable silence, the weight of all the things they couldn't say pressing down on them. Jin-woo left earlier than usual that day, and as he drove away, he glanced in his rearview mirror to see Hana standing in the courtyard, small and alone, watching him go. In the city, his life continued to demand his attention. Board meetings, business dinners, social obligations. His father called, expressing concern about rumors that Jin-woo was slumming with inappropriate company. His friends grew distant, their invitations less frequent, their tones more judgmental. But Jin-woo found he didn't care. Let them talk, let them judge. For the first time in his life, he was choosing something real over something comfortable. Except he hadn't really chosen, had he? He was still living in his penthouse, still attending his meetings, still playing his role. He visited Hana when he could, but those visits felt stolen, secret, as if he was ashamed of her. And maybe, he thought in his darkest moments, maybe he was. The realization came one night when he was at yet another business dinner, surrounded by people who spoke in careful euphemisms about his distraction in the countryside. Someone made a joke about farm girls, and Jinwoo's first instinct wasn't to defend Hana. It was to change the subject, to deflect, to protect himself from embarrassment. He hated himself for it. That night, he stood at his window overlooking the city and made a decision. He would stop being a coward. He would stop hiding. Tomorrow he would go to Hana and tell her the truth, that he loved her, that he wanted to be with her. Consequences be damned. But tomorrow never came. The call came at 3 a.m, jarring Jinwoo from restless sleep. It was a number he didn't recognize, a voice he barely understood through static and panic. "Mr. Park? This is the Yangpyeong County Hospital. There's been an accident. Lee Hana asked us to call you." Jinwoo's blood turned to ice. "What happened? Is she hurt?" "There was a fire at her family's home. She's stable, but you should come as soon as possible." Jinwoo didn't remember the drive to the hospital. One moment he was in his apartment, pulling on clothes with shaking hands, and the next he was running through sterile hospital corridors, following signs to the emergency ward. He found Hana's mother first, sitting in a plastic chair with her face in her hands. She looked up when she heard him approaching, and the look she gave him was pure venom. "This is your fault," she said, her voice shaking. "All of this." "What happened?" Jinwoo asked, his heart pounding. "Where is Hana?" "She's with the doctor. Smoke inhalation, burns on her hands and arms. She went back into the house to save our photographs, our family records. She could have died." Jinwoo felt like he'd been punched. The fire. How did it start? The mother's eyes filled with tears. "Someone said it, deliberately. We found gasoline containers. The police think it was meant to be a warning." "A warning for what?" "For you," the mother spat. "For her getting involved with someone above her station. Someone called the house last week, said terrible things, said we should know our place. That girl like Hana shouldn't be trying to rise above where she belongs." Jinwoo felt sick. No, I never." "You didn't have to," the mother said bitterly. "Just by existing in her life, you made her a target. You made us all targets." Before Jinwoo could respond, a doctor emerged from one of the rooms. "Mrs. Lee, your daughter is asking for you." The mother stood, and Jinwoo moved to follow, but she held up a hand. "No, you've done enough. Stay away from her. Stay away from us." "Please," Jinwoo said, his voice breaking. "Let me see her, just for a moment." The mother looked at him, and for a moment he thought she might relent. But then her expression hardened. "If you really care about my daughter, you'll leave. You'll go back to your world and forget about her. Because as long as you're in her life, she'll never be safe." She turned and walked into the room, the door closing firmly behind her. Jinwoo stood in the corridor, frozen, as the truth of her words sank in. This was his fault. His friends, his world had done this. Whether it was Minho or someone else from that poisonous social circle, the message was clear. Hana didn't belong with him, and they would make sure she knew it. He wanted to burst into that room, to hold Hana and promise her everything would be all right. But how could he make that promise? How could he protect her from a world that saw her as nothing more than an obstacle to be removed? Jinwoo turned and walked out of the hospital, his mind numb with shock and grief. Over the following days, he tried to see Hana. He called the hospital, but they wouldn't put him through. He drove to Yangpyeong, but her family had moved to a relative's house, and no one would tell him where. He felt like he was losing his mind, caught between desperate need to see her and the terrible knowledge that her mother might be right. Finally, a letter arrived at his office. It was written in Hana's careful handwriting on simple paper. "Jinwoo, I'm all right. The burns are healing, and the smoke did less damage than it could have. Please don't worry about me. I know you're trying to see me, I know you care. But my mother is right. Your world and mine, they can't exist together, not without one of them being destroyed. I don't blame you for the fire. I know that wasn't your doing. But it showed me something important. As long as I'm connected to you, I'll be a target. My family will be in danger. and I can't live with that. You need to let me go, Jinwoo. You need to go back to your life and forget about the farm girl who saved you once. It was a beautiful thing while it lasted, but it was never meant to be permanent. Please don't try to find me. Please don't make this harder than it already is. Be well. Be happy. Hana Jinwoo read the letter 3 times, then a 4th, hoping the words would change. But they didn't. She was ending it. Cleanly, kindly, but definitely. He crumpled the letter in his fist, feeling something inside him crack. She was right, of course. She was always right. But knowing that didn't make it hurt any less. For weeks, Jinwoo went through the motions of his life like a ghost. He attended meetings, made decisions, signed papers. But inside, he was hollow. His friends noticed the change but attributed it to stress. His father was relieved that he had stopped embarrassing the family with his rural excursions. No one understood that he had lost something precious, something he hadn't even fully appreciated until it was gone. He stopped going to parties. He stopped returning Minho's calls. He threw himself into work, hoping exhaustion would numb the constant ache in his chest. It didn't. 3 months after the fire, Jinwoo sat in his office late one evening, staring at nothing. His assistant had long since gone home. The city lights glittered below, beautiful and meaningless. His phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. He almost didn't check it, but something made him look. It was a photo. A new house, small but sturdy, surrounded by replanted gardens. And in front of it, Hana and her mother, smiling at the camera. Below the photo, a message. We rebuilt. We're okay. Thank you for respecting my wishes. I hope you're well. Jinwoo stared at the photo for a long time, memorizing every detail of Hana's face. She looked thinner, older somehow, but she was smiling. He typed a response, deleted it, typed another. Finally, he sent just 2 words, I'm sorry. The reply came almost immediately. I know. And that, it seemed, was that. Jinwoo set down his phone and stood, walking to the window. His reflection stared back at him. The same sharp features, the same expensive suit. But something in his eyes had changed. He looked tired. He looked lost. For the first time in his life, Park Jinwoo didn't know what to do. The seasons changed, and with them, the city transformed. Spring gave way to summer, summer to autumn. The leaves turned gold and red, then fell, leaving the trees bare against gray skies. Jinwoo watched it all from his window, feeling the passage of time like a weight on his shoulders. He had tried to forget Hana. He had tried to move on. But she was there in everything, in the taste of simple tea, in the sound of honest laughter, in the rare moments when he encountered genuine kindness in a world built on transactions and appearances. His friends slowly drifted back into his life, perhaps sensing that whatever rebellion he had been staging was over. Minho called to invite him to a New Year's party, his tone carefully neutral, as if the harsh words between them had never been spoken. Jinwoo almost declined, but something in him, pride, or perhaps just habit, made him accept. The party was at the same hotel where the gala had been held, and Jinwoo felt a sharp pain in his chest as he walked through the familiar doors. This was where Hana had saved him, where everything had started and, in a way, ended. The usual crowd was there, wearing their usual masks of sophistication and superiority. Jinwoo moved through them mechanically, accepting champagne he didn't drink, exchanging pleasantries he didn't mean. He was standing alone on the terrace, that same terrace, though they had since installed higher railings, when Minho found him. Jinwoo, his old friend said, joining him at the railing. It's good to see you here. Is it? Minho was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was subdued. I owe you an apology for what I said about that girl, about Hana. Jinwoo turned to look at him, surprised. I was wrong, Minho continued, about a lot of things. I thought I was protecting you, but really I was just protecting our world. This world. He gestured vaguely at the party behind them. And I'm starting to realize that maybe this world isn't worth protecting as much as I thought. What changed? Jinwoo asked. Minho smiled sadly. My father had a heart attack 3 months ago. He survived, but it was close. And you know who was there first? Who helped my mother get him to the hospital? Jinwoo shook his head. Our housekeeper, Mrs. Kim. She's worked for us for 30 years, and I don't think I'd ever really looked at her before. Not really. But when my father collapsed, she was the one who knew what to do. She was the one who stayed calm. And my mother told me later that Mrs. Kim had lost her own husband to a heart attack 5 years ago, but she never told us because she didn't want to burden us with her grief. Minho's voice cracked slightly. What does it say about us, Jinwoo, that the people who serve us feel they can't share their pain with us? Jinwoo had no answer. I treated Hana like a joke, Minho said quietly. I brought her to that party to humiliate her, to entertain myself at her expense. And she responded with more grace and dignity than any of us have ever shown. I'm ashamed of that. I'm ashamed of a lot of things. So am I, Jinwoo said. They stood in silence, two men beginning to see the cracks in the world they had been born into. Is there any chance? Minho started, then trailed off. No, Jinwoo said firmly. She made her choice, and it was the right one. Was it? Jinwoo thought about Hana's mother's words, about the fire, about all the ways his world could hurt someone like Hana. Yes, he said, though it hurt to admit. She deserves better than what I could give her. Or maybe, Minho said gently, you didn't give her the chance to decide that for herself. The words haunted Jinwoo for days afterward. Had he given up too easily? Had he accepted Hana's decision because it was easier than fighting for her, than fighting for them? He didn't know, but the doubt gnawed at him. Winter arrived with unusual severity, bringing snow that blanketed the city in white. Jinwoo found himself thinking about Yangpyeong, about whether Hana's new house was warm enough, whether the gardens had survived the frost. He picked up his phone 100 times, wanting to call her, to check on her. But he never did. She had asked him to leave her alone, and he owed her that much at least. It was on one of these cold, sleepless nights that his phone rang. The number was unknown, and for a wild moment Jinwoo's heart leapt, thinking it might be Hana. But it was her mother. Mr. Park, the woman's voice was tight, controlled. I need your help. Jinwoo sat up, instantly alert. What's wrong? Is Hana? She's sick. Pneumonia. She's in the hospital in Yangpyeong, but they don't have the equipment she needs. They want to transfer her to Seoul, to a specialist hospital. But our insurance won't cover it, and we don't have the money. Jinwoo was already reaching for his clothes with one hand. Which hospital in Seoul? Mr. Park, I'm not calling to ask for charity. Which hospital? He repeated, his voice harder. There was a pause, then quietly, Asan Medical Center. I'll make the arrangements. Tell them she's coming, that all expenses will be covered. Mr. Park. The mother's voice stopped him. Why are you doing this? Jinwoo thought about all the ways he could answer that question. Because I owe her. Because it's the right thing to do. Because I'm trying to be better than I was. But in the end, he said simply, because I love her. I know I have no right to, but I do. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then, so softly he almost missed it, she loves you too. That's why she sent you away. The words hit Jinwoo like a physical blow. He sat there, phone pressed to his ear, unable to speak. Come to the hospital, Mr. Park, Hana's mother said. But come as yourself, not as the person you think you should be. My daughter deserves that much honesty. She hung up before he could respond. Jinwoo arrived at Asan Medical Center before dawn, having spent the night making calls, pulling strings, ensuring that Hana would have the best care available. Money, he had learned, could solve many problems, but it couldn't solve the one that mattered most. Hana's mother met him in the waiting room. She looked exhausted, aged by worry, but when she saw him, something in her expression softened. Thank you, she said, for arranging everything. How is she? Stable. The doctors here are confident she'll recover, but it will take time. Her lungs were already weakened from the smoke inhalation during the fire. Guilt lanced through Jinwoo. Even now, months later, she was still suffering the consequences of knowing him. "Can I see her?" The mother studied him for a long moment. "She's sleeping, but yes, you can see her. Room 407. Jinwoo walked down the corridor with his heart pounding. When he reached the room, he paused outside the door, gathering his courage. Then he pushed it open. Hana lay in the bed, small and pale against white sheets. There was an oxygen tube in her nose, an IV in her arm. Her eyes were closed, her breathing shallow but steady. She looked fragile in a way he had never seen before, and it terrified him. He pulled a chair close to her bedside and sat down, not touching her, just watching her breathe. "I'm sorry," he whispered, though she couldn't hear him. "I'm so sorry." He sat there for hours as the sun rose, as nurses came and went, as the hospital slowly came to life around them. He sat there and watched her sleep and tried to figure out what he was going to say when she woke up. But when her eyes finally opened, when they focused on him and widened with surprise, all his carefully prepared words disappeared. "Jinwoo?" Her voice was hoarse from the oxygen tube. "I'm here," he said, and his own voice wasn't quite steady. "I'm right here." "You shouldn't be," she said, but there was no conviction in the words. "Your mother called me. She asked me to come." Hana's eyes filled with tears. "I tried to stay away from you. I tried to let you go." "I know, but Hana, I don't want you to let me go. I don't want to let you go." "Jinwoo, nothing has changed. Your world and mine." "Then I'll change my world," he said, the words tumbling out before he could stop them. "Or I'll leave it entirely. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll move to Yangpyeong. I'll learn to farm rice. I'll—" "Stop," Hana said, a small smile breaking through her tears. "You're being ridiculous." "Maybe, but I'm also being honest. For the first time in my life, I'm being completely honest." He reached out and took her hand, careful of the IV. "I love you, Hana. I've loved you since you grabbed my wrist and refused to let go even though you could have fallen. I've loved you through every moment we've spent together and every moment we've spent apart, and I'm tired of pretending that doesn't matter." Hana was crying openly now, tears streaming down her pale cheeks. "You don't know what you're saying." "The pneumonia? It's made you emotional." "The pneumonia is yours, not mine," Jinwoo said with a shaky laugh. "I'm thinking clearly for the first time in months. I know exactly what I'm saying. Your family will disown you. Your friends will turn their backs. Let them." "Jinwoo, Hana, listen to me." He tightened his grip on her hand. "I have spent my entire life doing what was expected of me, being who I was supposed to be, living in the world I was born into, without questioning whether it was a world worth living in. And I was miserable. I was empty. I was nothing." "You're not nothing," Hana protested weakly. "I was until I met you. You showed me what it means to be brave, to be honest, to be kind even when the world is cruel. You saved my life, Hana, but not just on that terrace. You saved me from becoming someone I would have hated." Hana closed her eyes, more tears escaping. "I'm just a farm girl. I don't have anything to offer you. You have everything to offer me. Your strength, your kindness, your truth. That's more than anyone in my entire life has ever given me. What about my world? Could you really be happy here, living simply, without all the luxury you're used to?" Jinwoo thought about his penthouse, his expensive cars, his designer clothes. He thought about the parties and the business meetings and the endless game of status and appearance. "I don't know," he said honestly. "It would be hard. I would probably be terrible at farming. I would make mistakes and embarrass myself and struggle with things that come easily to you. Then how? But I would be with you," he continued. "And that would make it worth it. Because loving you, Hana, being loved by you, that's the only thing that's felt real in my entire life." Hana opened her eyes, searching his face. "You really mean that?" "I really mean that." She was quiet for a long time, and Jinwoo held his breath, waiting. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm scared. Me too. What if it doesn't work? What if we're too different? Then we'll figure it out together, one day at a time. Your mother will hate me. Probably. But she'll come around eventually. Or she won't. Either way, it won't change how I feel. Hana smiled. A real smile this time, even through her tears. You're not going to give up, are you? Not a chance. She squeezed his hand, her grip weak but determined. Okay. Okay? Okay, she repeated. We can try. But Jinwoo, you have to promise me something. Anything. Promise me that if you ever regret this, if you ever wake up and realize you've made a terrible mistake, you'll tell me. You'll be honest with me. You won't stay out of pity or obligation. I promise, Jinwoo said, on one condition. What? You have to promise me the same thing. If you ever feel like I'm holding you back, or that you would be happier without me, you'll tell me. Hana nodded. I promise. They sat there, hands clasped, as the morning light filled the hospital room. It wasn't a fairy tale ending. There were still obstacles ahead, still challenges to face. Hana's mother would have concerns. Jinwoo's family would resist. The world they lived in would judge and criticize and try to tear them apart. But for now, in this moment, none of that mattered. What mattered was the choice they had made, to fight for each other, to build something real in a world of artifice and appearances. Get some rest, Jinwoo said softly. I'll be here when you wake up. Promise? I promise. Hana's eyes drifted closed, and soon her breathing evened out into sleep. Jinwoo sat beside her, still holding her hand, and for the first time in months, he felt something like peace. The road ahead would not be easy, but it would be real. And that, he was learning, was all that truly mattered. The following weeks unfolded with the kind of slow, grinding difficulty that no amount of money could ease. Hana's recovery was gradual, measured in small improvements: a day without fever, a few steps without exhaustion, the ability to breathe without the oxygen tube. Jinwoo was there for all of it, learning the rhythms of hospital life, the long stretches of boredom punctuated by moments of fear when her temperature spiked or her breathing grew labored. His world didn't stop because he had chosen to step out of it. His phone buzzed constantly with messages he ignored, emails that piled up unread. His father called repeatedly, each voicemail growing more stern, more demanding. His assistant sent urgent requests that Jinwoo handle with brief, distracted responses. He knew he was burning bridges. He knew there would be consequences. But every time he looked at Hana sleeping in that hospital bed, every time she woke and smiled to see him there, he knew he was making the right choice. Hana's mother watched this transformation with careful eyes. She no longer ordered him to leave, but she didn't exactly welcome him either. She tolerated his presence the way one tolerates an uninvited guest who has proven too stubborn to dismiss. One evening, as they sat together in the hospital cafeteria while Hana slept, she finally spoke the words that had been hanging between them. You'll break her heart, you know. Jinwoo looked up from the coffee he'd been staring at. I don't plan to. No one ever plans to, the mother said. But you will. Not because you're cruel, but because you're from different worlds. Eventually, you'll miss your life, your comfort, your people, and when that happens, you'll leave. You don't know that, don't I? She studied him with those same dark eyes Hana had inherited. I've worked for people like you my entire life, Mr. Park. I've cleaned their homes, raised their children, served their meals, and I've watched them play at kindness, at caring about people like us. But when it becomes inconvenient, when it requires real sacrifice, they always go back to where they belong. The words stung because there was truth in them. How many times had Jinwoo himself treated the people who served him as invisible? How many times had he accepted their labor without seeing their humanity? I understand why you don't trust me, Jinwoo said quietly. I wouldn't trust me either. But I'm not playing at this. I love your daughter. And I know I'll probably fail at 100 things trying to build a life with her. But I'm going to try anyway. The mother was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was softer. My husband died when Hana was 12. Heart failure, sudden and complete. We had no savings, no insurance, no safety net. I thought we would lose everything, our home, our land, our future. She paused, her hands wrapped around her own cup of tea. But the village came together. Our neighbors helped with the harvest. The local shopkeeper extended us credit. The school waived Hana's fees. We survived because people who had almost nothing chose to share what little they had. She looked at Jinwoo directly. That's the world my daughter comes from. A world where people take care of each other not because they have to, but because it's right. Can you live in that world, Mr. Park? Can you be the kind of man who gives without expecting anything in return? Jinwoo thought about his penthouse, bought with money he'd inherited, not earned. His cars, his clothes, his entire life built on a foundation of wealth that had come from other people's labor. I don't know, he admitted, but I want to try to be that man. And if I fail, if I'm not strong enough or good enough, then Hana will be better off without me. But I won't know unless I try. The mother studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Fair enough. Just remember, Mr. Park, my daughter's heart is not a toy. If you break it, you'll answer to me. I wouldn't expect anything less. They finished their coffee in silence, an uneasy truce forming between them. Hana was discharged 3 weeks later, still weak, but recovering steadily. Jinwoo had arranged for her to convalesce at a small hotel near the hospital, where she could have privacy and comfort while remaining close to her doctors. But when he presented this plan, both Hana and her mother refused. I want to go home, Hana said firmly, to our home, in Yangpyeong. But the doctor said you need to be monitored? There's a clinic in the village. They can monitor me. Jinwoo, I appreciate everything you've done, but I can't stay in the city. I need to be somewhere I can breathe. So they went back to Yangpyeong, and Jinwoo went with them. The house that Hana's family had rebuilt was smaller than the original, but sturdy and well-made. There was a main room with heated floors, 2 small bedrooms, and a kitchen that opened onto the yard where chickens pecked and scratched at the winter-hard ground. Jinwoo stood in the middle of this modest home and realized he had no idea how to exist in it. Where did one put one's things when there were no closets? How did one bathe when the bathroom was barely larger than his penthouse's pantry? What did one do with oneself in a house with no television, no office, no space to retreat to? Hana watched him take it all in, a small smile on her pale face. Having second thoughts? No, Jinwoo said. Then, more honestly, maybe? Is it always this cold? Wait until summer, when it's hot enough to fry eggs on the porch. That's reassuring. Hana laughed, then coughed, and Jinwoo was immediately at her side, helping her to a chair, worried. Her mother bustled in with tea, shooting him a look that clearly said he was in the way. And so began Jinwoo's education in humility. The first week was a disaster. He tried to help with household tasks and broke a dish, knocked over a jar of rice, and somehow managed to set a kitchen towel on fire while attempting to make tea. He offered to help with the garden and pulled up vegetables instead of weeds. He attempted to gather eggs from the chickens and got pecked so badly his hand swelled. Through it all, Hana watched with barely concealed amusement, while her mother watched with barely concealed exasperation. You're useless, the mother declared one evening after Jinwoo had somehow flooded the bathroom by incorrectly operating the traditional Korean water heater. Mother, Hana protested, but she was smiling. He is, the mother insisted. Rich boy doesn't know the first thing about real work. I'm learning, Jinwoo said, mopping up water with towels, his expensive shoes completely soaked. Learning what? How to destroy things? But there was less venom in her voice than before, and when Jinwoo looked up, he caught the ghost of a smile on her face. Slowly, painfully, he learned. He learned how to properly feed the chickens without getting attacked. He learned the difference between weeds and vegetables. He learned how to operate the water heater without flooding the house. He learned that rice took patience, that vegetables required attention, that nothing in this world came without effort. His hands, which had never known more labor than signing documents, grew rough and calloused. His back ached from bending over garden plots. His shoulders burned from carrying water, from chopping wood for the fire. And through it all, Hana grew stronger. Her color returned, her breathing eased, her laughter came more frequently. She would sit on the porch wrapped in blankets, watching Jinwoo fumble through tasks, offering gentle guidance when he asked for help. "You're getting better," she told him one afternoon as he successfully started a fire in the traditional wood stove without filling the house with smoke. "I only tried 3 times today instead of 5, Jinwoo said, sinking down beside her, exhausted. "Progress." He looked at her, at the way the winter sunlight touched her face, and felt his heart clench. "Are you happy, having me here?" Hana's expression grew serious. "Are you happy being here?" "That's not what I asked." "I know." She reached out and took his hand, his rough, blistered hand that she had been coating with salve each night. "But I need to know that you're not just enduring this, that you're not counting the days until you can escape back to your comfortable life." Jinwoo thought about his penthouse, which his assistant had informed him was being maintained in his absence. He thought about the board meetings he was missing, the business opportunities slipping away, the social events he was no longer invited to. "I miss hot showers that last more than 5 minutes," he admitted. "I miss having someone else cook my meals. I miss sleeping past dawn." Hana's expression fell and he squeezed her hand. "But I don't miss feeling empty. I don't miss going through my days like a ghost. I don't miss looking at myself in the mirror and not recognizing the person staring back." He brought her hand to his lips, kissing her rough knuckles gently. "I'm happy here, Hana. Not because it's easy, but because it matters. You matter." Tears gathered in her eyes. "Jinwoo, let me finish," he said. "I know I'm terrible at almost everything. I know your mother thinks I'm useless. I know I'm probably making your life harder instead of easier. But I'm learning. And as long as you'll have me, I'll keep learning. Even if it means giving up everything you know." Jinwoo thought about that question. Really thought about it. "That's the thing, Hana. I'm not giving up anything that mattered. All those things I thought I needed, the money, the status, the admiration, they were just noise. They kept me from hearing what was real." "And what's real?" "This," he said simply. "You. Us. The sound of chickens in the morning and your mother scolding me for breaking another dish. The way the light comes through those windows at sunset. The satisfaction of finally getting something right after trying a dozen times. That's real." Hana leaned her head on his shoulder, and they sat together in comfortable silence as the winter day faded into evening. But Jinwoo's old life was not content to let him go so easily. The confrontation came on a cold February morning, when a sleek black car pulled up to the modest house, looking absurdly out of place among the vegetable gardens and chicken coops. Jinwoo's father stepped out, dressed in an expensive coat, his expression thunderous. Jinwoo was in the yard, attempting to repair a section of fence, when he saw the car. His heart sank. He set down his tools and walked to meet his father, aware that Hana was watching from the porch, her face pale. "Father," Jinwoo said, bowing respectfully, "is this where you've been hiding?" His father's voice was cold, controlled. "Living in squalor, playing farmer while your responsibilities rot in the city? I haven't been hiding, and I've been keeping up with essential business through my assistant." "Essential business?" His father's voice rose. "The board is in chaos. We've lost 3 major contracts because you weren't there to negotiate. Your mother is humiliated every time someone asks where you are." "I'm sorry for the inconvenience," Jinwoo said, keeping his voice level. "Inconvenience? You're throwing away everything we've built, everything your grandfather built. For what? For her?" His father's gaze swept dismissively toward Hana. Jinwoo felt anger flare in his chest. "Don't talk about her like that. I'll talk however I want. This foolishness ends now. You're coming back to Seoul with me, today." "No." The single word hung in the air between them. "What did you say?" "I said no, Father. I'm not coming back. Not now. Maybe not ever." His father's face reddened. "Don't be absurd. You have obligations, responsibilities. And I have a life," Jinwoo countered. "A real life, with someone I love. That's more important than any business contract. You think you love her now, his father said scornfully. But how long will that last when you're living in poverty? When you can't afford the things you're used to? When your friends move on without you? Those weren't real friends, and I don't need the things I'm used to. You're a fool. Maybe, but I'm a happy fool. His father stared at him for a long moment, and Jinwoo saw something he'd never seen before, genuine hurt beneath the anger. I worked my entire life to give you opportunities I never had, his father said quietly, and you're throwing them away. No, Jinwoo said gently. I'm choosing something different. That doesn't mean I don't appreciate what you've given me. But father, have you ever stopped to ask yourself if you're happy? If all that work, all that success, has actually made you happy? His father flinched as if he'd been struck. Happiness is a luxury. No, it's a necessity, and I've found mine. They stood in tense silence. Finally, his father spoke again, his voice hard. If you stay here, you're cut off. No more money, no more inheritance. You'll be on your own. Jinwoo felt fear clench in his stomach. But when he looked back at Hana, standing on the porch with her mother's arm around her shoulders, he knew his answer. I understand. His father shook his head in disgust. You'll regret this. Maybe, but it will be my regret to live with. His father turned to leave, then paused. When you come to your senses, when you realize what you've given up, I don't know if I'll be able to help you. I'm not asking you to. His father got back in the car and drove away, leaving Jinwoo standing in the cold yard, shaking. Hana came to him, wrapped her arms around him from behind. I'm so sorry. Don't be. I made my choice. Jinwoo, maybe he's right. Maybe you should go back. I don't want to be the reason you lose your family. He turned to face her, taking her face in his hands. You're not the reason. My father's priorities are the reason. His inability to see beyond money and status is the reason. You're the reason I finally had the courage to choose something different. But what will you do? How will you support yourself? I'll figure it out, Jinwoo said with more confidence than he felt. People manage to live on less than what I have. I'll find work. I'll learn a trade. I'll do whatever it takes. Hana's mother spoke from the porch, her voice surprisingly gentle. There's a teaching position open at the village school, English and business. The pay isn't much, but... Jinwoo turned to look at her, surprised. You think they would hire me? You have degrees from the best universities, don't you? Even if you are useless with chickens, you could probably teach. It was the closest thing to acceptance he had received from her, and Jinwoo felt oddly moved. Thank you, he said. She waved a hand dismissively. Don't thank me yet. You'll still have to survive on farmers' wages, but at least you'll be earning them honestly. And so Jinwoo began his new life in earnest. He interviewed for the teaching position and got it, despite the principal's obvious surprise at having a chaebol heir applying to teach at a rural school. The salary was laughably small compared to what he was used to, but it was something. He sold most of his luxury possessions, keeping only the essentials. His penthouse was rented out. His cars were sold. His designer clothes were donated. He opened a modest savings account and began learning to budget, to make every one count. It was terrifying and humbling and somehow exhilarating. Teaching was harder than he expected. The students were respectful but skeptical, unsure what to make of this wealthy soul man who had appeared in their village. But Jinwoo worked hard, preparing lessons with the same dedication he had once brought to board meetings. Slowly, the students warmed to him. He made them laugh with his honest admissions of how little he knew about rural life. He impressed them with his knowledge of the wider world. And gradually, the village began to accept him too. He was always going to be an outsider, but he was an outsider who showed up, who worked, who didn't complain. When a neighbor's roof needed repairs, Jinwoo was there with a hammer, even if his help was more symbolic than practical. When the village held a festival, he participated awkwardly but earnestly. Spring came, and with it, the planting season. Hana, fully recovered now, taught him about rice cultivation. They worked side by side in the paddies, their hands in the mud, their backs bent under the sun. This is going to ruin my complexion, Jinwoo joked, wiping sweat from his forehead. Poor rich boy, Hana teased, having to work for a living. Former rich boy, he corrected. Now I'm just a regular boy who can't figure out how to plant rice in a straight line. That's okay, Hana said, smiling at his crooked rows. They'll grow anyway. And they did. Through the spring and summer, Jinwoo watched those rice plants grow and felt something growing in himself too, a sense of purpose, of connection to the land and the community around him. But not everything was idyllic. There were days when Jinwoo lay awake at night, his muscles aching from labor his body wasn't used to, and wondered if he had made a terrible mistake. There were moments when he passed a store in the nearby town and saw something he used to buy without thinking, a nice watch, a good bottle of wine, and felt the sharp sting of knowing he couldn't afford it now. There were times when old friends from Seoul posted photos of parties and trips on social media, and Jinwoo felt a pang of exclusion, of being left behind. But then Hana would find him in those dark moments, would sit with him and hold his hand, and remind him why he had chosen this. And the doubt would recede, at least for a while. One evening in early autumn, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and rose, Hana spoke softly. Jinwoo, I need to ask you something. He tensed, hearing the seriousness in her tone. What is it? Do you regret it? Any of it? He was quiet, considering his answer carefully. Sometimes, he admitted. There are moments when I miss my old life. The ease of it, the comfort. But Hana, those moments pass, and what stays is you, us, this life we're building together. Even though it's harder, especially because it's harder, because it's real, because I'm earning it instead of just inheriting it. Hana leaned her head on his shoulder. I love you. I love you too. They sat in companionable silence as the sun sank below the horizon. Inside, Hana's mother was preparing dinner, and Jinwoo could smell kimchi jjigae simmering on the stove, a smell that had become familiar, comforting. This was his life now. Simple, difficult, real. And while it wasn't perfect, while there were still hard days and moments of doubt, it was his. He had chosen it. He had chosen her. And he would keep choosing every day for as long as she would have him. The seasons turned again, bringing winter back around. A year had passed since Jinwoo had walked away from his old life, and he barely recognized the person he had been. His hands were permanently calloused now, his skin tanned from working outdoors, his body lean and strong from physical labor. He had learned to fix fences, to tend gardens, to coax reluctant fires to life on cold mornings. He had learned the names of all the village families, their children, their histories. He had learned that community meant showing up again and again, whether it was convenient or not. And he had learned what it meant to love someone not in grand gestures, but in small daily acts of care and attention. On a cold December evening, Jinwoo asked Hana to marry him. There was no expensive ring, no elaborate proposal. Just the two of them sitting by the fire after dinner, and Jinwoo taking her hand and saying simply, "Will you marry me?" Hana stared at him, tears gathering in her eyes. Are you sure? Really sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Jinwoo, there's no going back from this. Once we're married, your family will never accept you again. I know. We'll struggle. We'll have to work hard for everything we have. I know. You might wake up one day and regret everything. I might, Jinwoo agreed. But I don't think I will. And even if I do have regrets, even if there are hard times ahead, I want to face them with you. Because you make me better. You make me real. Hana was crying openly now. Yes. Yes, I'll marry you. They married in the spring, in a small ceremony in the village church. There were no elaborate decorations, no designer dress, no fancy catering. Hana wore a simple white handbook, and Jinwoo wore the best suit he still owned, now slightly worn at the cuffs. His family didn't attend. Minho sent a gift and an apologetic message, but said his presence would anger Jinwoo's father, who had made his disapproval clear to their entire social circle. But the village came out in force. The church was packed with neighbors, students from Jinwoo's classes, farmers who had taught him how to work the land. Hana's mother, who had slowly warmed to Jinwoo over the months, cried happy tears as she watched her daughter marry a man who had proven himself not through wealth, but through character. The reception was held in the village hall, with food everyone had contributed to. It wasn't fancy, but it was joyful, filled with laughter and traditional music and genuine celebration. As Jinwoo danced with his new wife, stepping awkwardly through moves he was still learning, he looked around at the simple decorations, the modest food, the people in their best but not expensive clothes. And he felt happy. Truly, deeply happy. This was his world now. These were his people. This was his home. It wasn't what he had been born into, but it was what he had chosen, and that made all the difference. Years would pass. There would be challenges, financial struggles, misunderstandings, moments when the gap between their backgrounds felt impossibly wide. They would argue about money, about priorities, about how to raise the children that eventually came. Jinwoo would sometimes miss aspects of his old life, and Hana would sometimes feel insecure about keeping him. But they would work through it, together, day by day, choice by choice. Because love, Jinwoo had learned, wasn't a feeling. It was a decision. A decision made not once, but over and over again, in countless small moments. And standing there in that village hall, his wife's hand in his, surrounded by people who had accepted him not for what he had, but for who he was becoming, Jinwoo made that choice again. He chose love. He chose truth. He chose the hard, beautiful reality of a life built on something more than money and status. He chose her. And in the end, that was the only choice that mattered.